So we'll call the Board of Commissioners to order for a full board meeting on August 31st. The first item of business is the invocation by Commissioner Marcia.
Yes, a couple of weeks ago at my church, the minister made reference to the preamble of the Constitution, which refers to the common good. And this is the prayer that he ended with, which I thought fit our situation. So let us pray. Go forth in simplicity, find and walk the path that leads to joy, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people.
Amen. Jesus' name. Amen. Next up is the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Larry, will you please begin that?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Sears.
Present.
Commissioner Hovey-Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Laring.
Here.
Vice Chair Nash.
Here.
Commissioner Pago.
Here.
Chair Skolmanek.
Here.
Sorry. Commissioner Wilkins.
Here.
9 present.
Okay, thank you. The next item is approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Support.
Okay, we have a motion that's been supported. Are there any comments or corrections on the minutes, or not on the minutes, on the agenda? Okay, we'll do a voice vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Sear, did you have something?
No, we're good.
No, okay. The next item is the approval of the minutes of the August 10th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion that's been supported to approve the minutes of the August 10th, 2021 meeting. Are there any comments, corrections, anything on that? If not, we'll vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those minutes are approved. We now have time set aside for public comment on an agenda item. I have 2 slips here for comment, but is there anything on the roads? I believe that, so that'll be at the end of the meeting then. Any public comments? If not, we'll move on. Next, we have a couple of presentations. The first one is from the Greater Muskegon Economic Development Agency with Director Jim Edmondson. Is he here? I don't know.
He is online.
He's not here.
He's online.
Oh. Jim, are you there?
Hey, Bob. Yep, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can see our presentation either in front of you or up on the screen. There it is. Great. So we're going to present this to you today, and we really appreciate the opportunity to share with you what our progress has been so far this year. So I'll start off with the economy. It's been going up slightly. As you can see here, 17 jobs from June, but it's a 2-month growth. So we are up about 200 and some the previous month. Unemployment rate 7.7. Sort of more importantly, see, might be hard to see that, but the recovery rate since March of 2020, pre-pandemic, we're at 95.7% of where we were. And to give that in real terms, we're shy of 3,000 jobs minimum. Be nice if we had 5,000 more people working. Our pre-pandemic employment was 72,900. New order index still stays strong. That's the purchasing managers who are buying stock to make products in the manufacturing. So as long as it's above 50, that means it's expanding. While that's good news, as many of you know and hear pretty readily, semiconductor shortage is slowing that down. Silica is slowing it down. In the food industry, meat particularly is in short supply. That's also then leading to consumer prices index going up a little bit. Gas is going up a little bit. So while we are close to our full recovery, we're not feeling it because of those shortages. And also we're, 5,000 jobs in our economy is quite a few. So, and Morgan, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys for letting us be here again. Morgan Carroll, our Director of Business Development at Greater Muskegon Economic Development. So part of what GMED is responsible for is retention, expansion, and attraction of new businesses in Muskegon County. So far in our year, we've had 92 retention calls, and those have been virtual and in person. We love doing the in-person ones because, we get to go out and tour facilities, et cetera. So far this year, we've had 5 project wins. They are from small businesses to large manufacturers, almost 33 million in new capital investment and 143 new jobs and 160 retained. Those projects are throughout the county. So City of Muskegon, Montague, et cetera, Muskegon Township. So we continue to build on the progress in Muskegon County, even through COVID. Our prospects, a couple of them we have that have come through our contract with Research on Investment that we work with to attract companies from either the United States or outside of our boundaries. A few of them do come from the state of Michigan that we respond to RFPs for. So requests for proposals. There are a little over 1.5 billion in potential investment for Muskegon County. 1 or 2 that I will point out is for the BASF site in Muskegon Township. So we do have a couple of projects. One, we actually got pulled in at the last minute. So we were 11th hour site that the company found. So we put our best foot forward and we have a really good opportunity to bring that project in. That will be almost 300 jobs and over $300 million in investment in the community. Those project potentials for jobs are a little over 1,100 jobs and 19 are food and ag processors. One of them that we're working on right now will add a significant increase to the wastewater treatment facility. So between 3 and 4 million gallons of water a day. So that's a really big input and increase to our wastewater treatment facility. And we also, underneath Greater Muskegon Economic Development, we do have Procurement Technical Assistance Center. They cover 13 counties for government and federal contracts for our manufacturers and businesses within the 13 county region. So far, we've had over $329 million in government contracts to our local businesses. And we actually just hired a new individual for another role underneath PTAC. So that is going really well.
Strategic projects we've been working on this year. Next slide, please. So farm is the big one that you've all heard about. Some of you have been there. Go the other way. Slide 4. There we go. So that's the 8,000 square foot business accelerator. It's also an R&D center and soon to be a STEM training center with some funding we received from the Howmet Aerospace Foundation. Currently, we have 2 tenants in there. They're both in accelerator mode. They are expanding their sales into larger supermarkets, including Whole Foods and Meijer, what have you. One is Lively Up Kombucha. The other is Kaya Flavors, the Cajun food and spice manufacturer. And so we're happy to have them there, and they're doing so well. Lively Up Kombucha has a problem already in the fact that our incubator space is too small for them. So they've grown that fast. So we're hoping to accommodate him with that. The MSU Product Center is now manager and on board, while GMED is holds the lease with the community foundation to operate it. We partnered with MSU to get a ag specialist here and also connections to the product center so we can do the most we can for the industries we put in there. We also are negotiating with a large existing food processor who will use it as a test site for rolling out new products, testing the manufacturing process and how the whole product comes together. And of course, we're seeking funds to complete the build out of our final and third bay there so we can continue to put either large processors or new entrepreneurs in there to build that out. And you'll probably hear about that in upcoming meetings. We've put a lot of effort into our industrial parks, and we're going to continue next year with more emphasis on building industrial area. We're essentially running out of it. So this year we helped Norton Shores assemble some land that it could either be one larger site or 3 smaller sites. So that helps a lot. We just got about an $80,000 grant from EDA so we can do park planning in Muskegon Heights in 2 areas. One we call the Industrial Park East, sort of the northeast side of the city, and Industrial Park West, where Quality Tool, Webb Chemical are. Trying to eke out and lay out some more land so we can bring more industry here. And then we just got helped the developer in the shops on Sherman, helped them apply and got awarded a $1 million EPA grant to redevelop that brownfield site. Okay, next slide.
All right, thank you. So in the past year and a half, we've received and administered almost $1.9 million in grants to support our small businesses in Muskegon County. So we supported well over 100 different businesses and grants through that process. Our first round of grants was $140,000. The second round was a little over $1.1 million. And then the third round was around $650,000. So we had our scoring criteria that we went through, and we did have grant committee members that helped us with that process. So we were happy to have helped out those small businesses who, as far as we all know, they're still in business and doing very well. We've also received over $675,000 in grant funding for capacity building for the MSU manager and for STEM training at Farm, which Jim had just talked about. And then we've also been a part of over $140,000 in funding that was raised to support the West Michigan Food Processing Association. So if you're not very familiar with that, that organization really just helps to build the awareness and capacity of food processing in Muskegon and for other counties. And they're looking to be more of a statewide association to promote the food processing efforts and capabilities throughout the state of Michigan. We also have been implementing new Discover Manufacturing tools. So what Discover Manufacturing is it's a regional collaborative through 13 counties in West Michigan to get students engaged in manufacturing careers. And what we do is usually each year in the month of October, we take hundreds of students in Muskegon and thousands of students out in West Michigan to manufacturers to get them exposed to all types of careers, whether it be a welder, engineer, HR, IT, press brake operator, doesn't matter what it is. We want to get them exposed to different careers in manufacturing because that is our largest industry here in West Michigan. We've definitely changed the way that we've been operating this exposure to students. Last year, it was completely virtual. We had 40 manufacturers in West Michigan that participated. We will be doing a hybrid this year. So we will be doing a week of virtual manufacturing tours of 40 manufacturers. We'll probably have 4 or 5 in Muskegon County that'll be able to participate because we do have to work through West Michigan Works. They come and they do the videotaping and interviewing of the companies, but then we'll also be doing a version of in-person. Depending on what the appetite of our manufacturers look like in our county. We will either do virtual or we'll either do in-person tours at the end of October, or we're going to wait until spring of next year. We continue to work with Muskegon Community College and the Career Tech Center on this effort as we all work together with our connections with our manufacturers and our students. We continue to operate the Whitehall Township Tooling Coalition. So this was started years and years ago through tax incentives for individuals that were in the tool and die industry. They continue to meet each quarter, and we do facilitate that, bring in new speakers, discuss hot topics, best practices. So that continues to move forward. And then the last point on this slide that I want to touch base on is our business resource team in Muskegon. So we have 16 business resource partners that we work with. Usually we meet on an every other month basis and then host yearly trainings and seminars for anybody that has one employee all the way up to if you're a Howmet and have at this point in time 2,400 employees. Our next seminar will be in the spring. We did have one planned for last fall, but obviously that got kicked on to the future because of COVID. Our next one will be focused around marketing for talent and retention, attraction, how to facilitate getting new customers, how to reach new suppliers. So we do have marketing experts on each of those items that we'll be able to present to our local businesses. Next slide, please. So for marketing, if you're familiar with us, we used to be Muskegon Area First. Now we're branded to Greater Muskegon Economic Development. We did go through with rebranding and a new website with Muskegon Lakeshore Chamber. So it's really fun if you go and check out on our website. We do toggle back and forth between the two because we're so closely tied together. If you're on a page at GMED and you want to hop over to the chamber because you think that's where you're going to find the information that you're looking for, you can do that, and vice versa. We have new tools on our website. One of them is Zoom Prospector. So if you're looking for sites in Muskegon County, all of our sites are listed on our website, and we're currently updating that right now as things continue to change. We also use that site on our website to submit the properties to prospects that come through the state and that come through us through ROI, or ones that we get through our website. One cool really thing about our website is that there's an actual contact form now. So probably at least about once a week, we get information requests through our website that come to us. We so far have had at least 3 or 4 new leads from our website. One of them has already moved into Muskegon County from Ottawa County, and working with another one right now to do the same thing. We also have demographic data on our website that goes down all the way to the township level. So it gives community-wide data and community information. And we also have different sectors of our economy listed on there. So please go ahead and check that out. It's a really great tool. We use it all the time. We've used it for grants. Townships and cities can use it as they're applying for anything that they would like to go for. We also partnered with the Livability magazine. And so what that is the chamber for the last couple of years, they put together a Livability magazine through Livability, and it's about a 60 to 70 page, all about Muskegon County magazine, demographics, testimonials, information about our communities, schools, businesses, really looking to attract businesses and new talent. What we did this year is we put in our own 8-page insert, and then we also got 1,000 copies for ourselves to send out to site selectors. So our 8-page insert, and you guys can find this online or let us know, and we are more than happy to bring over the magazines or the inserts. Those inserts, like I said, they're 8 pages long. It has information on Muskegon Area First, Greater Muskegon Economic Development, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and then the West Michigan Food Processing Association, as well as Farm. So it has your key points that you would want to know as a site selector. when you're looking at bringing new businesses to communities. So like I said, we'll be sending that out to about 200 or so site selectors with a short blip of information on, really why they should look at Muskegon County. And one of the things I will point out is, so we do have demographics, we do have number of universities, but we really do hit hard on our wastewater treatment facility capacities. That is one of our big points on there, as we do look at obviously bringing in more food processing companies, and half of our contract with research on investment this year was to bring in more food processing companies. Next slide.
Next slide. So what are we getting in return? So every dollar invested into GMED so far this year has returned 73, which is pretty good, even on a national level. So we've spent about $506,000 so far this year. Our year ends September 30th, and then we'll do a final annual calculation. And we've brought back 36,000, almost 38 or 37 rather, in either new investment that companies have made when we talked about the project successes we had, state supports small business and industry, grants to local government, and research supported activities. So we feel good about that. It's we think it's a good return to the community, and we're looking forward to continue it into 21-22. And we've got some good plans already on the horizon, broadband assessment countywide, so we can figure out what kind of infrastructure upgrades we've got to do, more work on the industrial parks and trying to grow those. We need to do some groundwater research out in the area, eastern part of the county. We're having difficulty meeting the freshwater demands for prospects that are coming in looking at the wastewater disposal capacity we have. So some interesting and good studies we'll do too. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Jim, I'll ask you in a minute if there are any questions, but that return of investment on 1 to 73, that doesn't include any of the PTAC revenue. No,
we don't include that because they're funded by on their own through state and federal money. So we only count the money that is as a result of our efforts at GMED. So they run underneath us, but they run in their completely own separate budget. Same thing with the association. Their numbers aren't in there either.
PTAC operational budget is not part of your budget.
No, except it's a standalone. It's a fund within ours, but it's a standalone fund. But we have a completely separate budget for GMED, and that totals about the upcoming budget. It's going to be about $670,000 for the year.
And how many people work for your organization?
We have 2 full-time and 2 part-time.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else got any questions for Jim? Yeah.
Jim, I just wondered that you mentioned the BASF site. Can you share what is actually going on out there? I'm not familiar with that.
Yep, we've got an interested party. We're covered under non-disclosure agreement, so we can't tell you their name. They would use the facility in a similar manner than it is being used, but construct or produce a different kind of material. And we can tell you it's a predecessor product used in manufacture of pharmaceuticals. So it's not a pharmaceutical itself, but a base property of some.
It's not actually an ag either then?
No, it's not an ag. There is another one that really is not included on our prospect sheet because we haven't heard much back on that one. That one would be $1 billion. And they are still contending with the BASF site, but there are about 5 or 6 prospects. Only one of them shows up on our prospect list because that one is the most.
It's the best chances.
It's the best chance for us to get And like I said, they came in at the 11th hour and they had found us and were very highly interested.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just have a small correction, Jim. You said you had 36 million and, or 36,000
Right.
in new.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, that math wouldn't work, but what you see on the screen is correct. Thanks so much.
Yes.
I got it too.
And Jim, you can tell us who that prospect is. We won't tell anybody.
Yeah.
This is on Facebook Live, Bob.
All right.
We don't tell Bob that.
I have, first of all, I don't know whether it's a criticism, but we're kind of a major funder of your organization. And
Yes, you are.
I think you should come in person next time.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is
be
not,
happy to.
I mean, it was fine.
Yep, you're about 21% of the budget, so and we're very thankful of that.
I want to remind you that you should be here. in person. So
Okay.
other than that, anybody else got any questions?
I did have one question. Well, I had a couple questions. One is the expansion that's going on with the quality staff in Muskegon Heights. Are you guys involved in that?
I'll see if Morgan has done
Can
any
you
work
say
with
that
them.
one more time? The expansion of
Quality stamp.
no. So with Quality Tool, so normally with a manufacturer's expansion, yes, we would be highly involved. But a lot of our involvement comes with our PA 198 tax abatements. So Quality Tool has not taken those tax abatements. So that is really the bulk of what our work would be on that end, besides helping with if they need contacts with construction or utilities or anything like that. But they are actually all set with all of that progress and with their expansion with Quality Tool.
Okay, and I know they're also looking at doing more development with the industrial park. Are you guys involved with that?
Yeah, so we're looking, part of the grant funding that Jim had talked about was for that industrial park right there. We have worked with them in the past to help get grant funding for the more or less fixing the railroads that are right along Jarman that Webb Chemical uses. At that point in time, it wasn't feasible for either company to really put in any dollars because of financial situations and COVID.
And we've met with Quality a couple of times, and we've discussed training grants and what have you. They typically can do things and have the capability and desire to do things alone, and which is great. They're one of our greatest companies and families in the community. Jarman Street's a mess, so we're looking at is there a way to reroute that? So part of those industrial park studies will look at that. The crossing is horrible. Webb needs to expand too, and so we're taking all of that into consideration, particularly the land that is south of them.
And you just touched on something else regarding training. With all these different companies, are they partnering with our training centers? And if they are they offering any type of training or scholarships? And where can we get that information so we can get that out to the community?
Yeah, so with training, Quality Tool does work, well, most of our manufacturers, I'll say this, they work with either Muskegon Community College or the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center. Muskegon Community College provides the technical training, while the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center provides the process-oriented training, which is going to be lean, plant layout, Kaizen, your ERP systems, things like that. Most of our employers, I want to say 95% of them will pay for your training needs as long as it applies to, the needs at your position within that company. They mostly will also pay for apprenticeships as long as you do stay with their company for X amount of years. Some of that has been changing over COVID just because of the needs of employers to get their employees. They do, Muskegon County actually does have one of the highest, Muskegon County and West Michigan has the highest capture rate of the Going Pro grant funding through the state of Michigan. So that grant funding will be opening up again this year. The state usually has about 30 million to give out. And we get, like I said, we get a really good portion of that funding. So that's where some of that funding comes through. But then, like I said, a lot of the rest of it does come through the employers to really upscale and to retain their employees.
So how can we get detailed information on which employers are offering that and how we can plug, our local workers into those?
So a lot of that information, it changes on employers. Like I said, most of them will completely provide the training costs. I don't think I could call any one of them that would tell me that no, that they wouldn't. There's really no detailed company by company incentives for what they offer for their employees. If individuals do want to get more information, it would either be contacting the companies or really working through West Michigan Works, because that is their role within the community, is to get employees connected with employers.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. So even if you're currently employed or unemployed, West Michigan Works is a good first stop. They work with the employers and will have a good handle. If you are currently employed, then yeah, you just need to go in and talk to HR, see what kind of training funds they might be, or even positions that they need to have filled, and can you train for that position, and if it's something they're targeting. So current employees can do that too.
Okay, Jim, one last question. In the beginning of your presentation, I think you said that there was about 3,000 less employed people.
Yes. From March 2020, which is our peak before everything broke out, we were at 72,900 jobs. So we're at 68,700 something right now. So that's just minimum. But that's doing a direct comparison. Well, I say it's the minimum because what we're also suffering because of pandemic right now is what we saw starting, the baby boomers retiring, but before the pandemic, they were retiring at their age as they became age eligible, or they felt they built up enough retirement. The pandemic accelerated that because people sat back and went, geez, I'm close enough. I think this is it. So now we're seeing maybe a 3 to 5 year window where it used to be a 1 or 2 year window where the baby boomers dropped out of the economy. So we're falling even further behind in the straight line analysis to the 72,900. That's why I was saying we could probably easily absorb 5,000 new jobs right now. Now they're available, not maybe all 5,000. There's thousands advertised as available across all sectors every month. We track that in our newsletter if you follow that. And, might take a few months to absorb it, but they're out there, and it's going to grow as a problem as the baby boomers continue their natural dropping out of the economy. And not to mention the acceleration from COVID.
Okay, so essentially we're short at least 3,000 workers.
Just to get back to the pre-pandemic level.
And that's without the growth that we've been experiencing. So, I'll give you an example, Bob. Up in Whitehall, we had Highlight that expanded. They added 108 new jobs. Those were new jobs during the pandemic. And they already had a substantial workforce. And so, with the expansions that we're working on right now, another company adding another 60 employees, another one adding another 30 employees, a couple of the new ones that are coming into the county. It continues to grow. More or less, a lot of companies are starting to get back to their pre-pandemic levels of employment. But with that being said, when you look at the labor force participation rate, we continue to fall. Right. And that's the age group of 16 to 65 able-bodied working individuals. We're at 55, 56%
Right.
on a good day.
Yep. That's unsettling.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you, guys.
everyone. Yeah.
See you next time. Right, thanks.
Okay.
The next presentation, I guess B disappeared from the agenda, is our Director of Public Health, Kathy Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did send that electronically, but I also bought copies just in case, because sometimes things don't work out. Oh, thank you. This is the, I'm sorry, Kathy Moore, Public Health Director. This is the status as of yesterday. The numbers can change daily. I had a 6 a.m. Presentation at American Chemical Solutions, and so I am using the presentation I used this morning. The chart you see before you is the number of cases, or the chart of cases from the beginning of the pandemic, March 2020. The peak, which we call the super surge, was November of 2020. And then there was a resurgence April of 2021. Even though you see that high number of 384, that means we received 384 cases in one day, but a lot of that was backlog, and that did not push us over beyond the super surge that occurred in November. And then if you look towards the end, the right, this is August of 2021, you see that the numbers are gradually increasing every day, but not at the steep level of the surge, of the super surge and the resurge. Next.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I need to, okay. Thank you. This is just a comparison of our contiguous counties. The Michigan positivity rate, again, it fluctuates. It was 9.1, now it's 8.8. It may go back up. The weekly cases per 100,000 population is a change in the metrics that MDHHS incorporated to align with CDC metrics. The local region, the local Grand Rapids region includes Muskegon County and 11 other counties. Their positivity rate is 10.7 with 153 weekly cases per 100,000 population. Muskegon County positivity rate 9.2 with 132 weekly cases. Kent positivity at 10.4, Newaygo 8.2, Ottawa 9.5, Oceana 9.5, and Ottawa 12.4. I think it's interesting to point out that Newaygo and Oceana, their weekly cases per 100,000 population is over 100. They don't have 100,000 population, so that number is it is just calculated so that you can compare apples to apples. And then based on the fact that we have the 100 cases per 100,000 population, CDC would classify our community transmission level as high. There are two factors, either 10% or above a positivity rate, or 100 cases per 100,000 population.
Excuse me, Kathy.
Yes.
Can you explain why our cases, weekly cases per 100,000 is so much higher than the state average?
It's a number, it's a calculation, and there are other places within the state that has a lower number, like even, for example, Newaygo and Oceana County. So if you average it across the state, it's just lower than what ours is right now.
Are we experiencing more vaccinations since the CDC approved it fully?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're seeing it at a similar rate of everybody else. So I can't say that Muskegon County is just pouring over to be vaccinated, but we are seeing numbers. Initially, it was points of a percentage, and now we're seeing a couple of points of increase.
Kathy,
Yes.
do you, of this 132.5 cases, do you know how many of those cases are vaccinated people?
I do not. There is a higher number of the cases that are unvaccinated people. And once we get into the vaccination group, I can tell you why. I explained it to the company this morning, and it'll make a little more sense if I show you that graph. This next slide is the 4-week forecast by CDC. The graphs on the left are like a bunch of different research companies, including Johns Hopkins, and it's their forecast. And then CDC's forecast is the dark burgundy line on the right. And for Muskegon County, CDC forecasts that our new weekly cases will reach 200 and then stay steady for the next 3 weeks. The same with Kent County. CDC is forecasting that their number of weekly cases will reach about 800 and remain steady. And Ottawa County, 400 and remain steady. And that's not, that's not a surprise because, population size and all of that. Right now, our numbers, all 3 of these counties, the numbers are below the CDC forecast at this time. Hospitalization. So one of the reasons we really emphasize some mitigation measures at the beginning of the pandemic was not to overwhelm the hospitalizations. Understanding that COVID-19 was a novel virus, people were getting very sick and even deathly, but we also wanted to make sure that hospitals had the capacity to address and serve patients who had heart attacks and strokes and cancer, because there's more going on than just COVID-19. So we watched hospital cases, and then also you will recall that personal protective equipment was really in limited supply, and that was another reason we didn't want to overwhelm the hospitals as much last year. Statewide, 4.2% of all the hospitals in the state, 4.2% of their beds are occupied by COVID-19 patients. The Grand Rapids region, which includes Muskegon County, 4.1%. And then the chart at the bottom left is Mercy Health. And we watched those numbers just to see how many COVID patients there are. It's remained on average 10 last week. Yesterday, they reported 17. So we will be watching those a little closer as well. One of the things, if you look at the second row in the Mercy Health, that number is pediatric cases. And it's been 0 really for months upon months. And one of the our community partners, one of the doctors who is also a community partner with us, said, well, maybe those kids are going to the Helen DeVos Center. And so now I'm including that number. The Helen DeVos Center, the number of 2, 3, and now 5, and then today it's back down to 3. That includes their region. It's not necessarily Muskegon County residents, as well as the numbers for Mercy Health. When I say they have 17 individuals in the Mercy Health, on the Mercy Health campus with COVID-19, that doesn't mean they are Muskegon County residents, but they could be. Again, this is produced by our epidemiologist, PhD in epidemiology, and she is showing the new variant cases. We have recorded 32 Delta cases to date, which the B117, which is considered alpha cases, 106 of those, but we're seeing so many less of the other variants at this time. Again, the state has slowed down in sequencing and testing for Delta because, now that Delta is present, we don't have to overly confirm that it's here. We know that it's here. And then all the various demographics with that. She do show that 3 individuals died with a variant, but no individual has died with the Delta variant in Muskegon County. So those 3 were the B117, and they were much earlier in the pandemic. The vaccine breakthrough cases is the other chart, and that just shows that we have recorded 269 individuals who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 after they were fully vaccinated. Only 9 of those 269 were inpatient hospitalized, and then 7 of those resulted in death. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, this slide actually shows the deaths by age group. And Commissioner Sear, well, and I don't really want to focus on deaths. I'll wait until we get the vaccination to talk about that. So the deaths do align with age and or pre-existing conditions or comorbidities. To date, we have recorded 2 deaths in the 30 to 39 age group, but 0 deaths under the age of 30 to date. The chart at the bottom actually shows you the number of deaths by month since March 2020, which was the beginning of the pandemic, to currently. Again, the number of deaths per month align with the surge of cases that was recorded in the first slide. And then the April and May was that resurgence. And so far we are seeing cases trickle up, but we are not seeing the deaths follow. But again, normally it does take longer because sometimes individuals are sicker longer. So you wouldn't necessarily see the death in the same month that you see a case. Okay, this is the vaccine coverage. Individuals age 16 and over, 60.5% of Muskegon County residents have received at least their initial dose, with 56.5 completing that dosage. Of the age group 12 to 15, 32.2% of residents in that age of Muskegon County have received at least the initial dose, with 26.6 completing. Commissioner Hovey Wright, the statewide average, so Muskegon County for the 60.5% is higher than the statewide average, but for the age group 12 to 15, it is lower than the statewide average, which theirs is about 35 or 36%. Commissioner Sear, the cases for, and so if you look at the cases overall, and then you also look at the vaccinations overall, that age group, the older age group, even when CDC and MDHHS lifted restrictions, they continue to practice mitigation measures like not going out and distancing and really being careful who they're around. So it's really, I don't want to, we don't want to blame people if they catch COVID, because some people are very, very responsible and they're catching COVID. But that age group is very, very careful. And so they have not seen the breakthrough cases at the same rate as some of the younger age groups, which is the 50 and 60s. And that's because, there's a lot of responsibility. They have kids or grandkids, or taking care of parents, or they have jobs in high positions and they feel like they got to get out and move about a lot more than the 70 and up age group. That concludes my report.
Anybody have any other questions for Kathy? Kathy, thank you.
You did say those were emailed to us.
I emailed it to Kathy and Kristen.
I can receive them yesterday.
Today.
Today, yes.
Just 20 minutes ago.
We update it quite regularly, and so whenever I update one for the community, I try to send here too.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we have something really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Public hearing for the budget by Finance Director Beth.
I make a motion that we open the public hearing for budget.
Support.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Beth, you're up.
Thank you. Beth Dick, Director of Finance. And yes, this is very similar to the presentation I gave last Thursday to the board, but this is a public hearing for the purpose of the public and to entertain any questions that may come up from them. So the fiscal 2022 proposed, oops, I'm touching this barely.
It's me, Beth.
Oh,
I gotta share it. I'm
Why
sorry.
does it keep going?
I gotta share the screen. I'm sorry.
Is it in my hands now?
It should be.
Okay, there it is. Okay, fiscal 2022 proposed budget. The budgets were distributed to the Board of Commissioners back on August 26th last week. We are required by law to hold a public hearing on the budget. A notice was published in the Muskegon Chronicle on August 22nd. It was also posted on our website. And the information on the budget has been available on the county's budget website. Okay, so I'm going to review several things related to the general fund budget is the primary focus here. Property tax revenues for the current fiscal year, our county's taxable value increased 3.85%. And when you determine what that taxable value increases from one year to the next, there's two components to that. There's a consumer price index or CPI component. And there's also a growth component. And last year, or this year, I should say, fiscal 21, that CPI component was 1.4%, and then the growth component was 2.45%. So the combination of the two was 3.85. Currently, the consumer price index is projecting at 3%. It's actually projecting higher for fiscal 2022, and that's based on last September of 2020 to this September. Whatever that change is of consumer price index will be the inflationary rate that's built into the 2022 budget. And right now it's trending over 3%. We're projecting a continuation of new growth of 1% from new housing, new business development, and business expansions. So for the 2022 budget that we're presenting to you and recommending, we're assuming a 4% increase in taxable values. And I feel that's a very conservative estimate for next year based on the fact that just the CPI component is 3% already. And the growth, assuming only a 1% growth is small compared to even fiscal 21. Just for a frame of reference, every 1% increase in taxable value is equal to about $250,000 in new property tax revenues over the previous years, just as a kind of a gauge there. Thank you. This is a graph that shows historically what our property tax revenues in the general fund have done for the last 10 years, or actually going back to 2011. Back in 2008, which you can't see on this graph, I don't go back that far, is when our revenues due to the recession started to decline. And we've gradually gone back up, starting really in 2013, 14, it started to go back up. And then it has continued to increase to the 28.5 million that we're budgeting for fiscal 2022, which includes that 4% increase in taxable value. And did you do that? Okay. Just one thing to point out, going back to that 2008 recession, calculated that from 2010 to 2017, the cumulative loss that the county suffered as a result of the decline in the recession is about $18 million. So we lost all that revenue and had to get back to where we were before. But that cumulative loss was about $18 million during that time period. Just highlighting some of the other revenues as part of the general fund. State revenue sharing, we are anticipating an increase of 2% based on the governor's original budget proposal. And then some other larger revenues in the general fund. Charges for services, we're assuming an $818,000 increase, or a $9.6 million charge for services revenue stream. The increase is over 2021, and that's assuming that we're going to return to pre-COVID levels for revenues, which increases jail and court revenues back to where they were before COVID affected us, which we've suffered some declines in revenues in those areas just because of COVID. And then we also have a transfer from what's called our delinquent tax revolving fund of $1.55 million in fiscal 22. That's a fund outside the general fund that accumulates penalties and interest based on people paying their taxes, their delinquent taxes. We earn some revenues on that for penalties and interest, and builds a fund over a number of years that we then transfer an amount to the general fund. Yes.
Yeah, the difference between 808,000 and 9.6 million is pretty significant.
Right.
What figure are you applying to the increase in revenue for fees?
Most of it is because of, and this is a comparison to the current year, we had significant declines in revenues in both the jail and the courts due to COVID. We have less capacity in the jail, so we're not housing as many inmates that we get reimbursement for from the state. And then also in the courts, because they've been closed for a good portion of the year. So that's an increase over the current year. So we're assuming we're going to get back to the pre-pandemic levels.
So between that 808,000 and 9.6 million, what figure are you putting into the budget for the increase in fees?
So the increase is the 818, the 9.6 is the amount budgeted for charges for services. It's not a range.
Oh,
I'm sorry if that's what it looks like.
Okay.
No, the 818 is the increase, the 9.6 is the amount that's budgeted.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry. And then this is another graph showing revenue sharing, since I mentioned it on the previous slide, as far as some historical information. So even though we're getting a 2% increase based on the governor's budget, we built in the 2% increase. It shows that it's really not that large of a change from the current year. It's only, we're getting 3.8 million. Actually, this year is about 3.77 million, I believe, and then it's rounded up. So this shows you that our revenue sharing, we haven't even gotten back up to the level that we were back in 2011 because of cuts that have incurred at different points in time. And the big dip in 2020 was because the state, as part of their budget balancing strategies due to COVID, cut our revenue sharing significantly last year. We were able to get some CARES Act funding to help offset that, but we did lose that in our revenue sharing. Okay, switching over to expenditures for the general fund. Again, we're focusing on the general fund. Salaries and fringes make up the majority of the general fund's expenditures. Almost 50% of the general fund expenditures are wages and fringes. We are a service organization, and therefore our personnel makes up the lion's share of those expenditures. For fiscal 22, our medical insurance is budgeted to increase 5.9% based on a bid that we received last fall from Blue Cross Blue Shield. They held our rates at a 0% increase for 2021, but locked in at a 5.9% increase for 2022 effective January 1st. That plus the fact that we always assume with the budget all positions are going to be filled, the combination of the increase and the fact that we would assume all positions are filled is about a $585,000 increase over 2021.
But that's not real. Because we don't fill all the positions.
Right, but we always assume that to start the budget out.
Yeah.
Retirement costs are increasing at $393,000 over 2021. We did have some assumption changes from MERS, our municipal employees retirement system. They changed their investment rate of return. They reduced that. So that means that we, in order to improve our funding, we have to end up paying more, and they make those changes on a periodic basis. So we are showing an increase in retirement costs. We are not including any charge to the departments within the general fund or any other fund for that matter for what's called other post-employment benefits, or we refer to that as OPEB, which is retiree insurance. We are, based on our last actuarial evaluation, 93.1% funded in our other post-employment benefits liability. So we've left that as no charge to departments. And we will have to monitor that in case we need to start charging departments again. Probably if we drop below the 90%, we'll start doing that again.
Beth, I have a question on that.
Yes.
How long ago did we charge that to the department?
So this is the second year that
Second year we have now.
Yeah, so
Thank
fiscal 21 and then 22.
Thank you.
And then this will be the fifth year, 2022 will be the fifth year that we have continued to use a workers' comp reserve that has built up over a number of years. As of last fiscal year end, we were at a $4 million reserve in workers' comp, and therefore to work that down, we've had departments forego having to receive any charges for workers' comp for the last, this will be the fifth year. And then this graph shows appropriations to other funds. The general fund has various departments that are contained within it. And then we also have other funds outside the general fund that receive an appropriation from the general fund. This shows some history and graphically what those funds are. You can see along the bottom, the red band is the largest appropriation that the general fund makes to the child care fund.
What is in the child care?
I was just getting to that.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
So that is where we have the Juvenile Transition Center as part of the general fund. There's also foster care expenditures and in-home intensive treatment. Trying to think of some of the other programs that are in there, Sandra. Those are the big, foster care is big, Juvenile Transition Center, in-home intensive treatment. There's when we have to send juveniles to another residential facility outside the county, those costs are also included in there. And typically the way it's historically worked is the county is responsible. It's averaged about 50% of the total cost, and then we get state grant money for the other 50%. That's actually adjusted more to a 60-40 in some of those programs where the general fund's only having to support 40%. But starting next fiscal year, we have the legislation of raise the age, which is going to push more juvenile. The 17-year-olds are now going to be put, instead of being tried as adults, they'll be considered juveniles. So that'll put them more in the child care fund, but there's grant funding for the next 3 years at 100% to cover the cost of those individuals.
Yeah. What happened to the kids that used to go to child haven? Maybe that's not a budget idea, but I think it's in this category.
Alicia Riedel, Deputy Circuit Court Administrator. I didn't anticipate having to speak today. So obviously, as you know, child haven closed several years ago. So those were typically kids that were placed there by DHHS if there was an open neglect abuse case. And with the closure of child haven, DHHS was charged more with finding a lot of family placements, licensed foster care. In certain situations, if there were none of that available, they would go to emergency shelters in other areas. But I think DHS has done a really nice job of trying to look at family placements more.
Thank you. I'm sorry, that's not a budget item.
So looking at some of the other larger funds outside the general fund that do receive an appropriation, you can see also family court is the orange band there that receives a large appropriation. And there's the next slide kind of breaks out some of the bigger ones for the 2022 budget. Public health is also historically Brookhaven used to have an appropriation, but when we closed that went away. Health West, the jail JTC debt service fund also is the purple band, and airport and transit at different times have had general fund appropriations as well. So this is showing you kind of how those have fluctuated over the years, and the total amount budgeted to appropriate to other funds. And then in a dollar perspective, this is showing you for the 2022 budget what we've included in the general fund. Child care fund is 3.8 million. The jail JTC debt service is about 2.6. Public health is just under 1.8 million. Friend of the court is 1.9 almost. Indigent defense at 1.1. Health West at 700,000. And there's no appropriations budgeted for 22 for airport or MATS because of they having COVID relief grant dollars that are subsidizing or supporting those operations. So the total revenues for 2022 for the general fund is budgeted in the recommended budget at $53,555,610. And this shows historically how the revenues have changed over the last several years, and you can see them increasing over time. And then this shows you on a pie chart how those revenues break down by various revenue categories. And you can see that the largest section is our taxes. This is not only property taxes, it includes liquor tax and payment in lieu of tax, which is referred to as PILT, and also delinquent personal property tax. That's all part of that group, but that's includes property taxes, so that's the largest share. The next largest share is your charges for services at the 18.07%, and what that represents is your district court costs, circuit court costs, register of deeds, what they get from properties when they properties sell. You've got transfer taxes and mortgage reporting fees. All those kind of fees are part of the register of deeds. Equalization, all of their assessing revenue is categorized in that category as well. So that's what makes up charges for services. And then the third largest is the intergovernmental, the yellow share or piece of the pie there. That's where your revenue sharing shows up, and your we get money from the state for state court distribution, state court equity distribution, where they reimburse for some of the court costs, and our personal property tax reimbursement that we get as well. And then the transfers in, which is the white share, is including the transfer from the delinquent tax fund. So some of those are some of the main categories of revenue. And then breaking this further down by dollars, showing you where those dollars come in based on the categories. And I've broken it down even a little bit farther than by category. So here's your property tax revenues at 27.5 million. And then there's a delinquent property tax revenue of just under $1 million there for that piece. The personal property tax reimbursement at 1.75 million, and that's several years ago, I believe it was in 2016, the state passed a law that exempted a lot of the industrial properties from personal property taxes, having to pay those. But then they're reimbursing the municipalities through this tax reimbursement for those losses based on a calculation that they go through. And then in addition to that, they've had some excess money that they've been distributing to the municipalities on top of that. We've been getting about this 1.75 the last couple of years. Liquor tax is 850,000. There's your state revenue sharing at 3.8 million. The delinquent tax revolving transfer at 1.55 million. Here's some smaller ones. Industrial facilities taxes, 110,000. Special assessments, about 70,000. Then we've got nothing in the tax forfeiture fund transfer. We've budgeted a transfer from the land bank of 110,000. That's a carryover from fiscal 21, which was originally budgeted to be used to tear down the old training center, and that did not take place this year. So we're moving it to 2022. And the state court equity fund, which I mentioned before, 980,000, where we get reimbursed for some of the court costs. They have to file reports on a monthly basis to get reimbursement that gets split between the various courts. The DTE program income is the DTE test and tune program. that we've been administering for a number of years, and that fluctuates from year to year, but the budget we have in for next year is just under 2.6 million. Administrative cost reimbursement is the revenue that we get from charging all the central service functions of the county, the accounting, HR, administration, treasurer's office. Those costs are accumulated in a report we call the cost allocation plan, and we distribute those to other departments, grant funded departments, and like the enterprise funds, the wastewater and so forth, in order to let those operations help fund and reimburse the general fund for those costs. So that's 2.6 million. Small amount of federal and state grants for fiscal 22. Our investment income is not much at all anymore, used to be years ago. Licenses and permits, 220,000. And the charges for services, and the reason why this number doesn't say 9.6 compared to the other slide is I've broken some of those charges for services out of the total. That administrative cost reimbursement is part of charges for services when you look in the budget document on pages S6 through S11 in the document. You can see that administrative cost reimbursement is included in charges for services. Since I've broken it out separately, I've taken the number less that. Fines and forfeitures, 460,000. We also get a salary reimbursement for the judges from the state, 660,000. Small amount for rentals, 130,000. Restitutions is 900,000, which is something new we had to break out starting with fiscal 21 due to a new government accounting standards. We used to keep all of these types of, like the restitutions would go in what was called trust and agency fund, but a new accounting standard is making us put all of that in the general fund now. So we have restitutions collected and then restitutions paid. They equal each other, 900,000 for next year. And then a bunch of other smaller things that add up to about 840,000 to get to the total of 3.56 million. Then looking at general fund expenditures, 54,287,282. And again, this is historical graph showing how expenditures have gone up over the last several years. And I've excluded, for purposes of this graph, taken out some of the kind of extraordinary items such as the closure of Brookhaven, and when we've done some bond issues, taken those things out of the equation to make it more comparable. And then looking at general fund expenditures by what's called function, and the functions are listed below. Legislative is really the board's budget by itself. That's the only one that falls into that category. General government is when you get into like the treasurer, register of deeds, equalization, administration, clerk, all of those fall into that general government category, which is the red section. The largest is public safety, which is your jail, your road patrol, the courtroom security, all of the things under the sheriff make up the biggest slice of expenditures. And then we also have debt service. You have judicial, which is all the courts. So those are the different categories. And then the next slide shows you how that breaks down by dollars. So the legislative, which again is the board's budget, is 430,000. Judicial is 11 million. General government is just under 10. Public safety is 15, almost 16 million. Public works, in this case, is actually the Water Resources Commissioner, 560,000. Welfare represents the DTE Test and Tune program, which is the expenditure side of it. And then health and culture is actually just the fairgrounds budget. There might have been one other small one that makes that up. Debt service is the payment of the judgment bonds, the annual principal and interest payments. Economic development represents the Register of Deeds budget, 560,000. And then the big number at the bottom is all the appropriations that go to funds outside the general fund. That I had that other graph to stack for that. Big number for that. So a total of 54.29 million. Looking at it from a different angle, we looked at it by function. This looks at it more by, I call classification. So salaries and fringes make up about $26 million of the total expenditures. Supplies, a little over $1 million. Travel, $310,000. Utilities, $740,000. Contractual services, $4.27 million. Rent and the IT chargeback, $2.19 million. The DTE program costs at $2.33 million. And then insurance, which this insurance is not medical, it's your property, auto, liability, general liability insurance, $840,000 to the general fund. The drain assessment expense that's built in is $300,000. The debt service is $430,000. And the building and equipment maintenance is $260,000. Software maintenance, $290,000. The restitutions paid, which offsets the restitutions collected, is $900,000. Some other miscellaneous things, $460,000, and then the appropriations to other funds, under $14 million for the total of $54.29 million. And then this breaks down those salaries and fringes a little bit further. So I said the total salaries and fringes was $26 million. The wage portion is almost 16 in itself. We've got some overtime of $610,000, Social Security of $1.23 million, medical at $4.5 million, benefit option $250,000. That's when people waive the medical insurance, they get a payment in lieu of medical. Dental, $190,000. Retirement is $2.4 million. Retirees benefits, small amount of $220,000. Nothing for workers' comp. A few other small oddball things that add up to about $590,000 for the total of $26 million.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't think I asked this in our work session last week, but what is that benefit option? How much savings does that accrue to the
I haven't looked at it lately to compare to if someone took the medical insurance instead of that. I would have to go back and
that's a
analyze
savings
it.
to the county though?
Yes, if someone does not take the insurance, it's definitely a savings. I don't know. Do you know what the current benefit option amount is?
$4,500 for a 2-person family.
And a family insurance coverage is probably close to $12,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this slide is basically, you can see it very clearly, is a copy of a page right out of our audit report from last fiscal year, which showed that we had an assigned fund balance of $1,895,000, if you can see it, and then an unassigned fund balance of $9,461,000. Because the board approved a budget for fiscal 21 originally,
No, what happened to it? Stop sharing.
There we go.
oh, thank you.
He's trying to make it bigger. Sorry.
Down the page a little bit. No, down the page.
All right.
There we go. So the board, when they approved the 2021 budget back in September of last year, they approved the budget with an amount to come out of our unassigned fund balance at the time of $1,829,000. The difference between the $1,829,000 and this $1,895,000 is a juror show cause fund balance that belongs to, I guess you could say, the clerk, for fees that she's collected and can be used for juror purposes. So that, along with the $1,829,000 that the board approved last year, has been designated and put in this assigned fund balance category. And that had to be done because the board approved that deficit to come out of reserves before the end of the fiscal year. When we went to do our audit report, we are required to put it in this separate category. It's designating it, it's setting it aside, it's already there. And then the rest, the 9,461,000 is considered what we call unassigned fund balance. So a separate category that our financial policy is based on. Next slide, please. So get into the actual slide show. We're just not going to show the slideshow. There we go. Thank you. So what this slide shows is what the original 2021 budget showed. What the board approved was the deficit of $1,000,008, rounded $1,000,830, and the assigned fund balance, beginning fund balance, was the $1,000,809, which would leave a remaining 0.06, which is really that juror show cause money, and the unassigned fund balance would stay at the $9,461,000 that it was at the end of last year. The most current projections that you will see next Tuesday, when you are presented the budget amendment for 2021, shows a much improved 2021 projected budget, and we're proposing it as a revision or a budget amendment that shows only a shortfall. Revenues have improved, expenditures have gone up, but revenues have gone up more. So we're only showing $190,000 shortfall for fiscal 2021 based on all the department budgets that they submitted a revised budget to us, went through and reviewed them with the departments. A lot of the improvement is due to work share. The savings, that the furloughs from workshare that weren't part of the original budget. So that's a big portion of why things have improved, along with the revenues being higher, because we budgeted a 3% increase in property tax revenues and it came in higher than that. So a lot of changes that have happened and improved that outlook. And therefore, out of that assigned fund balance that was set aside, we're only going to project it to use $190,000 of the $1,000,008, and therefore it's going to leave an extra $1.7 million in that category that can be used for the proposed 2022 budget, which shows a expenditures exceeding revenues of about $730,000. But because that extra that's left over from this year's improvement is there, we propose taking it out of that assigned fund balance category, which would still leave extra funds in that assigned fund balance by the end of next year.
Would it be the 14 and 19%?
Yes, that's a slide coming up, Carol. So, this slide here is just showing the work share savings kind of by department that was not originally budgeted. Many departments budgeted to do work share from October to December, but then extended it beyond that to really this week is the last week that the departments are participating. So by that extension, we saved an additional $690,000, $93,000 in the general fund. And then this is our fund balance policy for the unassigned fund balance, that we are to maintain a 14 to 19% unassigned fund balance of prior year expenditures plus transfers or appropriations to other funds, excluding extraordinary items. The next slide should show what that looks like. So our unassigned fund balance would stay the same at the 9.46 million. Total expenditures for 2020 were 48 million. And then this year, the way we project it to end, we would end up with our percentage being 19.6%, which is above the top end of the range, because it's always compared to the prior year expenditures. And then if we do what's recommended and take that out of the out of the assigned fund balance category, that $700,000 shortfall, then we would, for fiscal 22, be at the 18.2% range, still within our policy. Yeah.
What was last year's percentage? It's not on.
18 point, I'm sorry, yeah, I should have gone back and added that. I believe it was 18.9% for 2020. So that's the general fund. Now I've just got a couple slides on all funds. I didn't include the multitude of them that I did in Thursday's presentation, but looking at all funds revenues by category, if you remember when we go back one slide, total is $256,473,593. which includes the general fund of 53.5 million. When you look at all fund revenues by category, remember the general fund, the highest portion was your taxes. However, when you look at it on an all funds basis, which includes your wastewater, your Health West, your solid waste, all of those other funds, the largest portion is charges for services. So it flips from taxes to charges for services when you look at it countywide. And the reason what's included in charges for services is all the revenues associated with wastewater, solid waste, Health West, regional water, IT, and the general fund. So a lot of those enterprise funds and Health West it's considered a charge for service. That's why it's the larger category when you look at it on a countywide basis. And then expenditures for all funds is 257,051,590. And then looking at expenditures by function, if you remember, the largest portion on the general fund was public safety. But when you look at it on an all funds basis, the largest portion is health. And that's your public health, your Health West, solid waste and wastewater also fall under public health for this on an all funds basis. And then the next largest is your general government, which is airport, transit, the general fund, our insurance fund is part of that category. The budget does currently, that's recommended, does include 3 positions recommended for elimination. 2 of them are grant funded, and those positions that would be eliminated would be moved to other vacant positions. And then there is currently 1 filled position that would be eliminated, resulting in a retirement.
And is that the one in the books?
Yes. And then looking at all funds revenues, 256 million, all funds expenditures, 257 million, the difference being 580,000. This also, there are the funds that would have these shortfalls all have either fund balances or retained earnings sufficient to cover those difference between expenditures and revenues. And then we also include, as part of the public hearing, museum and central dispatch, because the board approves those countywide millages. Back in June, when you approved all the millage rates, you included the museum and central dispatch. And their budgets, the museum is actually based on they're on a calendar year. So this is their calendar year 2021 budget, which has revenues of 1.7 and expenditures of 1.8. So it's a difference there of 124,000. And there's reserves there to cover that. And then central dispatch is on a fiscal year like the county, 8 million revenues and expenditures equaling. And then it gives the millage amounts, revenue of 1.5 million for the museum and 1.37 million for central dispatch are included in the revenues. And the millage levies for the truth and taxation hearing that we held this past June, that we set the 2021 millage rates. They're listed here. County operating is 5.6601, 0.3198 mils for the museum. Veterans is 0.0746. Central dispatch 0.2979, and the senior millage at 0.4966 mils. For the 2022 budget, we're anticipating levying the same at 5.6601 mils in July of next year, and that's how the budget was developed.
Excellent, yeah.
And then there's 2 more meetings regarding the 2022 budget. You will be presented on September 24th with the final budget amendments along with the appropriation ordinance. And Angie Gaszewski will be the one that will be presenting that to you. And the full board adoption of the final budget will be on September 30th.
Okay. If there's any
Nice
public
job.
Questions, because it's a public hearing, so I don't know if the public has questions.
We're not seeing any.
Anybody? That's, it feels like this should be the end of the meeting, but it's just the beginning.
That concludes my last budget presentation.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
How
How many months of work was that?
Committee.
A lot, right, Angie?
We don't have to.
Start in January.
All right. we'll
We
move
have to
on
close the, make a motion.
Make a
to
motion.
Close public hearing.
Oh,
Make a motion to
okay.
close public
I need a motion to close the
Support.
public hearing.
Second.
Okay.
Motion and support.
Charles made it. I
All those
supported
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that officially closes the public hearing. We'll move on to committee and board reports. The first one will be community development and strategic planning by
Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Community Development Strategic Plan Committee met on August 12th, 2021. It was recommended that I move CDSP 21/08-20 and CDSP 21/8-21.
Support.
Support and second.
That is the second.
Support, yeah.
Yes.
All in fact, oh no, I would have to get vote on each one. So I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes, I know.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes, on all.
Vice Chair Nash,
Yes, on both.
Commissioner Payo,
Yes, on both.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes, on both.
Chair Skolnick,
Yes, and all.
9 yes on both.
Thank you. Both of them passed, and that is the conclusion of my report. So
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. The next board report is Transportation Committee, and Commissioner Brown chairs that.
thank you, Mr. Chair. The Transportation Committee met on August 12th, 2021. You have a summary sheet in front of you. It was recommended, and I move TR 21/08-21, TR 21/08-22, TR 21/08-23, TR 21/08-24, and TR 21/08-25. I'd like a roll call vote on each, please. Oh, yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes, I know.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes, on all.
Vice Chair Nash,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes, 21 through 24, no on 25.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes, on all.
Chair Skolnick,
Yes, and all.
8 yes on 21. I'm sorry, 9 yes on 21, 9 yes on 22, 9 yes 23, 9 yes 24, 8 yes, 1 no, 25.
Thank you. That's the conclusion of my report.
Thank you,
I
Chairman
know
Brown.
sometimes we get mixed up.
No, I understand. We look a lot difficult. I was mesmerized by the budget here. The next committee report is Ways and Means by Commissioner Seer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Ways and Means Committee met on August 24th, 2021. It was recommended, and I move on WM 21/08-81, -82, and -83.
Support.
Okay, so we have those motions.
Can we have to vote on those?
Kim, you're
Have
still,
been made and supported. Is there any discussion on those? If not, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes, I know.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes, on all.
Vice Chair Nash,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Pago,
yes, on all.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes, on all. Mr. Chair, that.
Chair
I'm
Skolnick,
sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes, on all.
9 yes on all.
That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Yes,
I did not record a vote for Commissioner Brown on the Transportation Committee.
And yes, yes, on all.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
The number still stands.
okay. And the next item on here is the chairman's report and committee liaison reports. Has anybody got any liaison reports they would like to give?
Chair, I have a comment from the Fair Board. They passed a motion 2 weeks ago requesting that the Sheriff's Department vacate barn number 5 and turn that building number 5 over to the Fair Board.
Okay. Was that in writing?
They have it in writing. I've got an email, but I attended the meeting.
No, I understand. I'm just,
what we'll do, yeah, we'll see what we can do with that. I'll have Mr.
Do you need to
Fair.
make a motion?
I'll have to bring it back to a committee to make a motion to do that.
And we'll have Mr. Fair do comparison of prices, including the airport as well.
I don't think we need that to make a motion.
No, I'm just letting you know what I'm doing.
And you could also find out what it would be if he wanted to rent that space from the.
I think that information.
Yes, I'll have that.
Thank you.
okay. Thank you.
When
Commissioner
will that come back?
Under community development.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few items to report here. One is the Polish Festival is taking place at Hackney Park this weekend. If you've not been attended that, if nothing else for the food, it's a good event. Also, the Stand Up for the Cure in-person cowboard event will be taking place at Ross Park in Norton Shores on September 4th. And that's all I have for community reports. Next up is the administrative report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first one is upcoming American Rescue Plan work sessions. I just wanted to remind you, next Tuesday, we'll be looking at the sheriff's office as well as the vet's office. And that Thursday would be VLZ study that we've been waiting for to hear for our facilities. We presented on that Thursday. But just to remind you, this Thursday, we have public works. There's no work sessions. Just public works. So my first item here, and only item for consideration, is to authorize staff to hire SIL Appraisal Group to perform the second appraisal for the Dune Harbor Park for the not to exceed cost of $7,850.
For what?
Well, wait a minute. So, can you make that motion?
No, I'll make a motion.
Oh, you make the motion and Charles support it. All right, we'll open it up for discussion. Mark, you want to tell us what that's about?
Question here, what's the question?
Do I take the roll call on the motion yet? Or
No,
discussion?
we haven't
Sorry.
had
Discussion.
Yeah. Bob Liggins.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Bob Lukens, Community Development Director. This is regarding a second appraisal for the Nugent Sand property. It's a requirement of the MDNR to process the grant. This company, we have performed the 40-year title search and the environmental due diligence have both been completed, but we need a second appraisal. And to get that second appraisal, we need a project agreement from the DNR. Once that happens, we are able to move forward with this second appraisal. So there were two companies that submitted proposals, and SIL Appraisal Group was discussed with the staff, the Land Conservancy, and the property owner, and they agreed that SIL Appraisal Group would be the preferred appraisal company to do this appraisal. They're a bit more, but it's when you look at the additional costs from Carlson Appraisal Group, it will work out to be about the same price.
Like I have a little background on this, but the people that are helping us raise the money for this wanted us to use this appraisal company, and they're the ones who are attempting, well, already raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for this project.
Yes.
Mark, you want to just say something about
I
that?
just have one question on that. There's not a conflict of interest between ownership and and this and that.
No, these, in fact, the appraisal companies have to be approved and recommended by the state.
Yes,
The appraisal are the ones who say.
And the one appraisal, or the company that did the first appraisal cannot be used for the second appraisal.
Okay, thank you.
And this is mainly statement Bob said, this is a requirement for the whole process. When you do appraisal up front, and then the state wants to do another appraisal at the end just to make sure the property held its value.
Okay, we'll do a roll call.
I have a
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry.
A budget for this, it's not, doesn't slate that it's budgeted. Where is this coming from?
That comes out of park funds. And then it will be reimbursed through the funds being raised. Like Bob Chairman said, there's roughly 500,000 being raised so far, and we'll get reimbursed out of it.
And this is the grant and the seed money that we started last year.
No, that's separate. Our seed money is still a separate pot.
Okay. So what budget does this come out of? The Parks Department budget?
Yes.
Reimbursed by the money raised.
Okay, anybody else? If not, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry,
No.
Vice Chair Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
No.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Steer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Chair Skolnick,
Yes.
7 yes, 2 no.
Mr. Chair, that ends my report.
I think there were three then. Was it just two?
I did have a quick question. on
Yes.
that. The 500 that you're talking about, is that just on this portion of it, or is that? with
That's
the
for the- I
whole-
believe that's for the whole.
Well, the idea, it started out being the whole plan. They were raising for the whole project, right?
Right.
And then the state split it in half. So we'll continue to ask them for more funds as the year goes on with them, and encourage them to raise additional monies, but it was initially for the whole project.
Okay. No, what I was wondering, I thought it was, because they raised funds on the first portion of this.
This is still the first portion.
This is still the first portion. Okay, all right, because I knew they were shooting for more. But, yeah, just wanted
Yes, I'm sorry. Mark.
Yeah, I noticed in the budget, in the capital budget, 1.2 million, no. Yeah, 1,200,000 was, that was
There's American
designated
Rescue Dollars list of,
for the parking lot.
no, that's for the entire thing. The campground, both sides, north and south side. The current campground, we do that, we did water and sewer, parking, additional park, all that.
Okay, but I don't see anything about bathrooms.
Well, there were something.
It just said parking in the capital.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the one that Matt put together, it had restrooms.
It's just a
Ideally,
request at
We're
this
still
point
working
anyway,
on
it's
it,
not
but that
done.
hasn't been approved.
Yeah,
there's a lot of work to do on that, yeah,
yeah, okay.
multiple years.
But there were bathrooms.
Right.
There, yes.
It just wasn't in the capital
No, not yet.
improvement thing yet.
So we were talking about Dune Harbor Park, Commissioner Hobie Wright brought up a question earlier. The RFP that was approved back on June 17th regarding the parking lots for Dune Harbor, where is that at this point?
Matt Farrell, Public Works Director, we expect that to be out to bid this.
Oh, it hasn't been.
Aye.
No RFP. RFP was sent out, right?
It would be a request for bids, an RFB.
B, okay.
No hurry.
Yeah.
You can leave some.
Have we closed on the first part of the part yet? I mean, we haven't closed on it. It's closed. Okay, so that, we voted on that, right?
Yes.
The next item is unfinished business. I have none. Is there any unfinished business to be brought before the board? New business. Is there any new business to be brought before the board? Now we have public comment, and I have a couple of people who would like to speak. First is former County Commissioner Alan Jagger.
He's also the Holton Township Supervisor.
Well, I just wanted to.
if you give me an extra minute, he may not have to speak either, so. Otherwise, he's gotta come up and finish his thing, so it might be easier if you just listen to me. I'm Alan Jager, 8081 Holton Duck Lake Road, Holton Township Supervisor. Holton is having trouble with the road commission. Holton passed an ORB ordinance in 2019 with Ken Hawka's knowledge, and now Ken Hawka doesn't like it. He tried to get the DNR to do his dirty work, but that failed. So now he thinks he can send us and other townships a letter declaring our ordinance is invalid. That is not true. He isn't God. Only a judge can declare our ordinance invalid. I believe he will try to stick the sheriff's office on us, but I have contacted the sheriff's office to see where they kind of stand on this issue. Sometimes during the year, our local roads are so bad that the ORV and four-wheel drives are the only ones that can travel them. Please do not write a county ordinance, a county ORV ordinance, as we will be forced into something Holton Township does not want. Our ordinance reflects our townships and our taxpayers. Here are some suggestions to fix the roads, things you can do as your board to make the road commission more accountable to the taxpayers. One is to do what Commissioner Pagel suggested. Let our township move to Newaygo or Oceana County, as our ORB ordinance is based on their ordinances. They are next to us, and they actually work on roads besides. Two, you have the power to fire Ken Hawka and replace him with someone that thinks the taxpayers own the roads and not the road commission. Three, a person smarter than me, high up in the county, that suggested the county road commission board be made of local township supervisors.
Alan, I'm afraid your time is up.
Do you really want to do that?
Yeah,
I don't care. I mean, I really, is that what you guys want to do? You junked our roads, you're junking our township, and I'm telling you, I need to have this speech.
Amount of time to speak. It's not.
Yeah, but you can't just, you're going to run this township into the dirt? Is that what your intent is? Why do you think that people want out of this county? I'm telling you right now, I'm going to finish this. You know what? You don't have to like it. You don't have to listen to him. You're going to listen to my ass.
Alan.
Three, a person smarter than me, high up in the county, that suggested the county road commission board be made up of local township supervisors.
Alan, your time
you can dismiss the entire board and appoint a new one. That way they would serve the people that voted them in there and would be a sense of accountability to the taxpayers. There are some very good ideas out there, like allowing the township to hire their own contractors to fix their local roads.
Writing so we can read it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, it's going to go on the internet anyway. You are going to get to read it. But you know what? We can't have this. Our roads are so bad, we can't get fire trucks down. You are going to kill a bunch of kids one of these days in a school bus. And I'm telling them all, it is you guys' fault.
It's not.
It is under your program. You have Ken Hawka in. You can replace him tomorrow morning. There are 5 board members out there. You guys appoint. That board out there is useless to us.
Please, your time.
Then you should have let me speak. I only got one more sentence now, and I'm still going.
Alan, that's not fair.
I said before that I should declare Holton local roads a state of emergency.
That's not fair.
And go to the court to force the road commission to fix the roads they have, and they're still negotiating, or allow us to do unjust repairs.
Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome.
Okay. I don't know. There's one more person.
Bob, I think it'd be good to clarify that we have no control over the road commission.
I told them we have no control. We appoint the
We're not
commissioners
supposed to answer these public comments.
We don't. They have the authority to hire and fire the managing director. We don't control their budget. They get separate money from the state. I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to figure out a way to raise more money and hold them to partner up with the road commission to fix some of the roads.
We need to find a way to get the hell out of this county.
Anybody else?
Okay, Leon Slater. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so you just talked about raising more money in Holton Township. Well, the majority of the people who live in Holton Township live on Holton Duck Lake, Holton Whitehall, or Skeels. The rural areas, none. We tried to pass the ordinance twice, would not go through. So we're at the mercy of the county. Now the township has some money that they can spend on the roads, not to the extent that Ken Holcomb wants it done. He wants $1 million for 4 miles. We want our little road fixed, and we could do it with the township funds. We could go out there and patch it. We could get it seal coated and done to the county's, whatever, to DOT's specs. So we could use that money to work on our own roads. Wouldn't cost the county anything. We'd just like to have the chance to do it. I mean, them roads are so bad. I watched the Fremont school bus come around the corner. Then I watched the Holton school bus come. They're terrible. You're gonna, I mean, some of them roads, I measured them holes this spring, were 16 inches deep, and I watched the school bus. And when the cookie all crumbles, I don't know where it's gonna go, but I would like to see Muskegon County keep moving forward and looking good. And this would be a place. Because I saw the budget, it looked good. I think we can make the whole county look better by doing something. And working with the county does not work. We tried. He will not let us release us. We're going to go his way or the no way.
Thank you, Mr. Sager. Okay, anybody else with public comment?
We have 2 online here. Karen Palmer.
Okay, I can't see it right yet.
Unmute.
She went down here. Someone disconnected her. She's no longer there.
She's just moved down. She's there. Hello, can you hear me?
Is that you, Tammy?
Yeah. Yes, this is Tammy Jager, 8081 Holton Duck Lake Road. And I just want to say this whole board just lied to the public. This board, the County Board of Commissioners, hires and fires the road commission head, and they hire and fire the road commissioners. You put them on that board. Don't you tell the public you don't. They are all nominated by the chairman of the Muskegon County Board, and with the approval of the board members are seated on the Muskegon County Road Commission. So before you tell them people that you're not responsible for that board, you are. And as Alan said, maybe he needs to declare our roads a state of emergency so you guys will sit up and take notice that Mr. Hawka tends to overcharge us for his items. And you know, most of the commissioners live in cities where they have their own millages and their roads are paid for and taken care of. Mr. Hawka's roads out by him are just wonderful. Wonder why that is. Maybe it's time you all started investigating exactly where his money is and exactly where it goes and why he's overcharging for these roads and why we don't have an option of being able to hire somebody to come in at half his cost. That's just my thought on the issue. One of these days, something will happen and it will be on your shoulders because you are the ultimate hire and fire of the Muskegon County Road Commission Board. And so don't tell the public you're not, you are. And I have watched a past board remove people and I have watched them put people on as a golden parachute for those people. So you pick and choose people you want to pay back politically and put them on that board. And maybe it's time you hire supervisors from the rural areas to serve on that board so their communities have a voice rather than your golden parachute jobs. Thank you. Have a wonderful day and blessings to you all.
Thank you, Mrs. Jager. We also have Karen Palmer on the phone. Karen, if you would unmute, you have 2 minutes. Karen, are you there?
Here she comes. Oh, no,
She
was unmuted. Now she's muted again.
Last chance, Karen Palmer. If you want to speak, you unmute and.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes. There you go.
We're playing a mute game. Can you hear me now, please?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Karen, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. With people with common sense, critical thinking, and that makes us
Aaron, you're
welcome to continue to distract from the truth about our elections, but that is over now. We can throw science at each other in the face. None of that matters. None of the school teachers or the commissioners and DHHS have any authority over our medical choices. And you could quote MCLs all day, but we'll quote the Bible, the Bill of Rights, or constitutions, and those sources will always win. We also give you our hard-earned tax dollars through the
She just got.
Karen, I think we've lost you. I'm sorry.
Anybody else?
I don't see any more.
I don't see any hands up.
All right, if you, I don't know what else to do. The call is dropped. Could you just come back? I don't know who's going to be here next meeting. Sure. And give us a report on our powers over the rotation.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Oh, do you have another hand up, Bob? Lynn Sample?
She was up. Lynn Sample, if you're there, you can unmute. You were there earlier. But
there she is.
Yes, thank you. Apologies. I have a very sketchy connection out here in the country, as does Karen. I hope she can get back on. I just wanted to speak up and say that what's happening to our young school children having to wear a muzzle, a mask, a horrible, it's just a travesty what's happening to the children. And what's worse is that people's God-given Bill of Rights protected parental authority is being usurped. As commissioners, as elected officials, you need to stand up. You took an oath to the Constitution. You need to get these schools back in the right, what do I want to say, in the proper order. They have no authority over the health and the welfare of the children. They are there to educate and educate only. I'm going to do everything in my power to enlighten parents and teach them that they are the final and only God-given authorized authority over their children's health. I wish you would do the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Karen's back.
So now I see that Karen Palmer.
She's got her hand back up.
Okay.
She just unmuted.
Karen, are you back? Unmute. Are you there?
Can you hear me better now?
Better.
Yeah, go ahead. You can start. Couldn't hear most of it.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. We, the people with common sense and critical thinking skills, know that the pandemic is a sham and scam. We know it is a lie that your health department director and some of you continue to perpetuate, and that makes us sick. You use this scam to continue to distract us from the truth about the election as well, but that is over now. We can throw science at each other until we're blue in the face, but none of that matters because none of you, from the school teacher to the county commissioner to MDHHS, has any authority over our medical choices. And you can quote MCLs all day, but we'll quote the Bible, the Bill of Rights, and our constitutions, and those sources will always win. We also don't give you our hard-earned tax dollars to have you throw them at the feet of an attorney every single time you feel challenged or pressured by the public. We elected you and our school board members to represent us, not attorneys. And your job is to hold to your oath, protect our rights, and provide those few administrative services we elected you for, and that's it. To that end, I hereby demand that our county commission take action to protect our children and school staff who are in several public school districts in our county being forced to wear masks against their will. Those schools have no authority to bypass the personal liberties and rights of parents and children. This is causing great distress and disruption in the whole county, with many parents having no option but to keep their kids home. This causes additional problems for the whole system. You have the ability and the duty to change this. Hold to your oaths, protect our rights and our children, and immediately draft a resolution to stop this unnecessary, illegal, an unlawful fight in our public schools. Draft a resolution against masks, shots, and any other medical mandates in our county. Represent us as is your duty. Please put a stop to this abuse of our children and our schools. If you fail to act on this responsibility, we the people will hold you accountable just as we will our school district officials. And I'm sorry that more people haven't jumped on this call to do this, but I know that there's a lot going on in our county and our school systems. And if you refuse to acknowledge that in the school board meeting, I think that's a very big embarrassment to our county. Thank you.
Much. And that is all of the call-in public comments. Next up is final board comments. Anybody?
Did you?
Can I do a
She
public comment?
had her hand up for public comment.
Oh,
Is that okay?
did I miss you?
Yes, is that
I'm sorry.
okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you fill the yellow?
I did. I didn't know I missed it.
Oh.
But sorry. Thank you.
Give us your name and address.
My name is Tana Anderson. I live at 2331 Pleasant Hill Drive in North Shores. You could
Hold
actually,
that microphone down.
because I'm short. I am a mom of 2 girls, ages 8 and 10. And it's hard to come here today and speak in front of the board because I have watched Ottawa County and Kent County's Board of Commissioners meetings. And it is very discouraging as a public citizen to watch how board members interacted with the community. Specifically Kent County, I watched this one commissioner took to Twitter and made fun of people while the board meeting was going on. Ottawa County, while people were talking, it was heartbreaking because I listened to parents talk about kids who they felt were very vulnerable health-wise. And then they voted on a $1 million budget proposal to further increase their health department, but they never talked about the difference between safety and health. And so I'm just really, as a community member of Muskegon County that I love living in, is just asking you as a board, let's just be better than the rest of the counties. Right now, we're the only county without a mask mandate, but let's just not mandate masks. Let's just maybe show that we respect the citizens of our county more and believe that they have the ability to make choices for themselves. Maybe if we want to focus on safety, we put lifeguards at Pierre Marquette because that's a safety issue and more kids drown than die from COVID-19. That's a safety issue. If we want to focus on health, then some of this money should go into HVAC systems in Muskegon schools so they're safe for kids to be in. That would be an actual health issue. And we have so much money that is going out to promote safety, but why don't we actually start promoting health? I know my time is up, but I just really want to focus on maybe suicides that are up 51% in girls. That's a health issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I didn't fill out a form, but
That's fine. Just give us your name and where you live.
All right.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Al Richards. I live in Twin Lake. And I want to pigtail what the girls have just said. We don't need a mask mandate. We have personal liberties. We can make that decision on our own. Masks have basically been compared to a chain link fence trying to stop mosquitoes. If you know the true nature of a virus and the size of it. The only thing the mask is doing right now is trying to remind people there's a pandemic when there isn't. The COVID-19 virus was never isolated. The PCR test, the gentleman that created the PCR test said they could not use it in the way that they're using it to determine positive outcomes. It was a genetic test that he made from multiplication of a genetic material so he could verify what strain he was looking at. This has nothing to do with a fictitious virus. And where did the flu go? You got a $3 million surplus from Muskegon High School for last year because they didn't have kids in the schools. That's taxpayer money. Don't we get a refund? I don't know what you have in regards to authority or jurisdiction over something like that, what percentage you might help them with. But if you're gonna play games with the general public in regard to a fiction, you're gonna be held accountable. I'm your boss, you work for me. So please consider what I have to say. I understand your fears. I have my own personal fears in regards to paying taxes. I know they're illegitimate, they're voluntary, but if I don't do it, I'll be arrested. Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
Okay. I asked for final board comments. There weren't any.
No.
You have someone on, you have someone with their hand up again on public comment. Looks like a name, Arlen Jones.
Okay. We've been through public comment, but this will be the last one. Arlen Jones.
Well, I don't think.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Doesn't want to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I am at 4413 Ryerson Road in Twin Lake, Michigan. I am going to say a couple things about Holton. Their roads are absolutely horrible. Born and raised in Holton. Something has to be done with that. And also, masks should be optional. My freedoms are no more than your freedoms. Your freedoms are no more than my freedoms. To force something on me is not a freedom. We have to look around and help all these schools out to help these kids. These kids are falling out of school, falling behind with them not being in school. Please, please help the kids, because it is absolutely hurting them. I know the health department said Muskegon's in a crisis. Yes, our hospital's full, but last I checked, there was 8 COVID patients in that hospital. This is not a pandemic or a crisis anymore. Let's all stand together and help this out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Last call for public comment.
Okay, yeah, anybody else with public comment? And we've gone through the final board comments, so we're up to, yes.
Did you have a final board comment?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was bringing this forward, and hopefully that we can get this together for the next board meeting. But the Health Board of Directors are going to be passing a resolution to declare September 21 as National Recovery Month in Muskegon County. So I'm hoping that we as a board could also put together.
Charles, I can't hear you. Can you speak up? What were you saying?
I'm hoping that we as a board can put together a resolution also to help support this in Muskegon County.
To support what
it's
I
a resolution to declare September 2021 as the National Recovery Month in Muskegon County.
Recovery
from mental health, substance, anything dealing with mental health. And it's a resolution. I forward this on to the staff, and they'll forward this on to you. I just wanted to see if we could get one developed for us so that we could bring this forward as far as the next board meeting.
Could you check with the public relations person? I think her name is CC Riley at Health West, and get some information on that. Put together
we have a resolution for the board, but I'm forwarding it to us so we can use it to develop one for us.
We already have a sample.
Right. The board is going to pass this at the next board meeting, at our next board meeting. I keep saying there. At our next board meeting, this will be one that'll be passed
Health West.
At the full board meeting. So we wanted to try to make sure that we coincide with them to pass one off.
Did you say there was a national? I didn't get the first part of everything that you said. It's a national.
September is National Recovery Month.
A National Recovery Month.
Does that need to go to Human Services first, or?
It doesn't matter to me. I just wanted us to get it done by next school board, whatever committee it has to go through.
All right. We can add that to the agenda easily.
Right.
All right.
Just wanted to put that across here.
No, I just said we could add that to the Human Services agenda tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Yes, I do. So I want to ask corporate counsel if you can verify what one of, I think it was Miss Palmer, for my knowledge, so I'm not a dereliction of my duty of my oath to the Constitution as a county commissioner. If we have any powers within our scope of a duty of a county commissioner regarding this school board mask mandate.
You know, it's an interesting question. It's one I've thought about, but I'm not aware of case law dealing specifically in the mask context of the school board's authority and whether that can be countered by action of the county board of commissioners. I suspect not. I haven't researched it.
I'm asking for not an opinion, but an actual legal.
Are you asking me to write a legal opinion?
I'm not asking for an opinion. I wanted to know the law on where our duty falls and ends or implies with that.
So when I say legal opinion, when I tell you, when I answer a question, we call that a legal opinion.
Okay.
I know it sounds like opinion, but it's a little more than just a personal opinion. That's where we research it and provide that statutory background.
Yes, please. Statutory is what I would like. Thank you.
To do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, just so everybody knows, when you make a legal opinion like that, it's costly. So.
Well, I have a duty. I took an oath to the Constitution as did everyone else, and I have a constituent asking
every time,
and I do not want to be a dereliction of my duty, so I need to know that I'm fulfilling the scope of my duty. So yes, please. Thank you.
Chairman, I'd like to.
Does anybody object to that?
I do for just a second. Okay. Because the reason I ask is because Kathy Moore is here, and I was under the impression that that came from the health department. Those mandates, if you chose to do that, but you had let the schools make their own decisions. Could Kathy address that for us, please? And maybe I was wrong, so I'd like to know too.
Kathy Moore, Public Health Director. The Public Health Department or me as a director have not issued any mask mandates in Muskegon County.
And it would be up to you, correct?
I'm sorry?
It would be within your jurisdiction.
I'm not sure about that.
Other counties have.
Yeah.
Okay.
And other counties are getting sued also. So
thank you. I was just want to make sure that we didn't already know it for the Kathy.
Well, that's her position. I'm concerned about my position personally. So
can I want to clarify your question, because there's a difference, I think, between saying can the health department do it and can the county
that's not
board
my question. I'm leaving health department out of it.
Sorry to speak over you. I understood your question is can the county board of commissioners do it? Is that
correct?
Your question? Okay.
Because I have a constituent that personally singled out me, our board as county commission, that we have a duty. And if I have a duty to do that, then I will act on that. So I need to know. Thank you.
If it's the board's pleasure to have me write that legal opinion, I'd be happy to do so before your next meeting, but I think it just has to be from the board.
We have to have a motion.
I don't think we need it. Then I'll make a motion that we have a legal definition of what our duties are in regard to a school board, however you want to word that.
And also, I guess, Melinda, if she was going to do it, I would like to know what kind of authority we have to mandate or not mandate that law for anybody in the county, whether it be for a school or
that,
just a residence.
That would be fine.
Can I say something here?
Wait, point of order. We don't have a motion yet, nor a second.
So I was trying to make a motion, but
make the motion.
I just want to
get a second.
I think you'll have a chance.
Okay, so I want to make a motion for our corporate counsel to distinguish the scope of our county commissioner duties, legislating a county
ordinance.
You already know the answer to that, though. That's not, no, that's not what I want. I just want an answer on if we have authority over these individual schools or I know what our authority is on the other end of that, so I don't need that answer.
Are you asking if you can override the decisions from the school board?
I guess basically if we can interpose on that, yes.
I will second.
Well, wait a minute. How about?
Nope, I made my motion and I got a second. Thank you.
I understand.
So now there's discussion.
Can I just help?
Yes, please. Thank you, Laura.
Okay. For my own benefit, I understood it. Correct me if I'm wrong. to be a motion directing corporate counsel to draft a legal opinion describing or defining the county board of commissioners' authority over school districts with respect to mask mandates? Or do you just mean authority over school districts generally?
School, I think over the school districts. I think that's probably over their policies, because that's, you know, and then
that was what I understood the motion, and then there was a second discussion.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
I think that's too broad a scope, because there's so many different things that involve a school district that we really shouldn't have any control over.
Well,
I'm just asking what our role is, if we have any kind of authority. So that's, I want to know that distinction.
You know, one of the, I'm going to make a comment here. Having served on a city council and served on this for many years, if you notice, we don't do ordinances. And we don't
I understand
make,
that.
we have
That's
no
not my
jurisdiction
question.
over ordinances or anything in townships. Now, if you're asking if she could come back and say what our general jurisdiction is over municipalities and school districts, that might cover everything. I mean, I've never, maybe you're right.
We're in uncharted territory right now, Bob, the last 18 months. So we're going to have new issues present us that's never presented before.
What power,
that's what I've asked.
Jurisdiction is over many things, school boards, local municipalities, pretty much anybody other than the things that we're doing right now.
Because my interest specifically right now is on school boards.
And the road commission.
I didn't make that motion.
No, but that would be another thing.
If you want to make a separate motion for that, we can probably do that. Let's get through this one with regarding the school board.
We've already been down this road in years past.
Yeah.
I know what the answer is, but
it's a waste of money
so
when you're talking about people's
people?
money.
Anybody
dollars.
want to pursue this?
I do.
Just
I would agree
just
with
with
that.
the schools.
Just the school board, just exactly what you said.
right now.
Okay, then we'll limit it to schools. Yes.
I just think that we're wasting our time and we're gonna end up wasting a lot of money because we already know.
When we have constituents that have kids
he's
that
talking.
He's speaking. Go ahead, Charles.
We already know that the school boards have been set up through the state and they're their own policy board over each school district. They make the decisions, they make the policy. And I know because I used to be on one, they made many policies. So we have to understand that we don't have the jurisdiction over their rules and policies for their school. And every school is its own entity and they can decide what they want to do. Now, we might not agree with it, but I don't agree with seatbelt laws, right? But if I ride without a seatbelt, I get a ticket. So we're just subject to whatever laws are out there, whether we like them or not, and we have to deal with them individually. But can we take that away from them? No, we don't. We don't have that power. And it's up to the schools. And we're at the wrong meeting discussing this.
But that's not what the Texas Supreme Court has said. They said that.
I'm sorry, you're not allowed to speak right now.
Okay, so there's a motion. And who knows what the motion? What is the motion?
The motion is to direct corporate counsel to draft a legal opinion describing the county board of commissioners' authority over school districts.
Okay, is that Marcia?
Yeah, I would agree with Charles. This is a waste of taxpayer dollars. I know that you don't want to spend any unnecessary taxpayer dollars. If this is so important, maybe you should get a lawyer yourself. But this is clear that this is not under our authority. Just like we can't tell the townships how to do their business.
Well, I just asked for corporate counsel to cite that and she couldn't cite that. So that's why I want it in writing and
I
research.
suspect you don't have the authority if you'd like a legal written opinion, because I got the impression you wanted something in writing with statutory citations.
Correct.
Okay, anybody else?
I just have to make a comment. Obviously, Kathy went to the local school boards and had them make their decisions because they know what their population is like, what their students are. Obviously everyone knows here I was on the school board, but the school board itself then would make policy. So for us to circumvent that, I don't think there's any rule now. If it makes you feel good about that, to tell your constituents that I have no authority, if we're going to pay for that, then that's a whole different ballgame. If that's what your end means is. So if you want to, just say, get a legal opinion and tell your constituents, hey, the county has no right to mandate or not mandate a mask.
I have one comment too, could you, to follow up on
Yes,
thoughts on Doug's is that, maybe you could go to your school district and ask, rather than have our corporate council dig into something that she already doesn't believe exists. They will probably be able to tell you whether they could or not.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. It's been supported, so how about a roll call?
Commissioner Larry,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nash,
No.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
No.
Commissioner Brown,
I'm going to say yes, just to get clarity.
Commissioner Sears,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey-Wright,
No.
Commissioner Hughes,
No.
Vice Chair Skolnick.
No, I'm opposed to it, but I'm going to vote yes. Just
And he's the chair, not the vice chair.
Oh, did I say vice? I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chair Skolnick.
You said vice chair. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. 5 yes, 4 no.
You want one on the road commission now?
I think we should discuss that. Does the board, there were public comments about the road commission. It's my general understanding that some counties have elections for road commissioners and some appoint road commissioners. If you have 12 townships, I believe you can do it by appointment. And so I don't know off the top of my head whether you appoint or elect. You appoint. So to the extent there is a question in the county board's mind as to its authority over the director or employees or things like that, and if you would like me to provide some guidance on that, I can do that if it is the board's pleasure.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that you look into the authority of the county commission over the road commission.
Second.
Okay, so now we have a motion for corporate counsel to give us an opinion, a legal opinion on our ability to control the road commission, what extent we have, what extent our power or jurisdiction extends over the road commission. And is there any other discussion on that?
I just want to make sure you're going to check it out with our particular road commission right here, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and just so we all know, and I hate this. I hate to spend the money on this because I think I already know the answer, but maybe I'm wrong. So let's get this out in the open once and for all.
Are we debating this? We can discuss
Go
this
ahead.
since someone made the motion. Okay, will that also include, because I don't know either. I know it's appointed. I remember last year, I think it was appointed, if I'm correct, for however long those terms are. I don't know off the top of my head because I'm new, but regarding whatever that policy is right now and how they're appointed and employed, how the severability and rewriting those policies can be done, if that makes sense.
If I understood correctly, you're asking kind of who as you have commissioners who I think are part-time, and then you have staff who is actually drafting versus approving policy. Is that what you're asking?
Well, they're appointed, so they're not elected officials, right? So
Right.
they would fall under our personnel, I'm assuming.
I'm not sure.
I don't know either,
But I think they're appointed officials.
I'm curious how the severability, what kind of power authority we would have over severability and rehiring, that sort of thing.
I think I follow your question.
Thank
Is
you.
if you wanted that person to no longer be a road commissioner, what
Correct.
would the process be?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Or a board member?
Correct.
Well, the only people we appoint are the board members, so that it would be we don't.
But they're considered road
We don't
commissioners.
hire the managing director.
And I think that's what you want the legal opinion to explain
Correct.
is.
Yeah.
Is Ken Hosa the managing director?
He's the
Correct.
managing director. And
So we
he's
don't
hired
hire
by-
him?
No, he's hired by their
By
board.
their
But we want to figure that out. Like, all right, the people that we appointed to be board members, can we remove them? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, what are the rules about that? I don't know.
I think we're getting this mixed up. I don't think that's what the motion.
Zach, talking to your microphone.
I didn't hear
Yeah, I
that.
think this motion
Can't
was
hear
about the director, not the appointed officials.
So, yeah, the question was over the director himself. We know that we appoint and they serve at our pleasure. We could already remove the commissioners. We want to know if we have authority over the director.
But they serve it for a certain amount of time we appoint them for.
Right, but we could vacate those positions if we so chose.
So if I understand the motion then is for legal opinion as to whether the county board of commissioners can remove the managing director of the road commission.
Correct.
Thank you.
We already know the answer to our appointed. We could take away their appointments.
All right, anybody else? So will you read that back just so you know?
Sure, I understand the motion to be a motion to direct corporate counsel to prepare a legal opinion as to the county board of commissioners' authority to remove the managing director of the county road commission.
Do you have that? Yes. Okay, roll call.
Vice Chair Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Heavy Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick.
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay. That's it. Anybody else?
One other thing, when do you think they have an opinion back to us?
Prior to the September 14th meeting, is that tradition?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry.
How about
I don't know about tomorrow morning.
all right. The meeting is adjourned at the call of the chair, so we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.